Okay. Hello, everyone. We are so excited to be here today to kick off the celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Midwifery Program at NYU Rory Meyers College of Nursing. Yeah. Over the last 3 decades, this program has had an enduring impact on healthcare, education, and communities, shaping the future of midwifery and the lives of countless families. It's a testament to the dedication, innovation, unwavering commitment of everyone involved, from faculty to students to alumni and community partners. We have an incredible program lined up for you. Our speakers today will be delving into the evolution and future of midwifery, exploring it through the critical lens of both science and social change. You'll also hear thoughtful discussion that explores the intersectionality of midwifery across vital areas like education, mental health, community partnership, and advocacy. Following our keynote address and panel discussion, we invite you to join us for a networking reception. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge all the midwives in the room. Please stand if you're able. Oh, and student midwives. Midwives to be, you can stand up too. We'll celebrate you. If you are the director of a midwifery program, please stand if you're able. Okay, some of you? Yeah. It's exciting to be together with all of you today as we kick off the 30th anniversary celebration. I'd like to introduce Sasha James Contarelli, the director of the Midwifery Program at NYU Meyers, and Kelly Walker, the Senior Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and Clinical Associate Professor at NYU Meyers.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sasha, this is Kelly. Not to be confused. So we wanted to acknowledge, I'm the 4th director of the Midwifery Program here at Meyers, and that's saying a lot for 30 years, that it's only been 4 directors. So there's been a pioneer of our program, that's Dr. Patricia Burkhardt, and we're very, very honored that she's here today with us, and we wanted to acknowledge her. Dr. Burkhardt, can you please come up? So while she's coming up, just to let you know, Dr. Burkhardt was both Kelly and my director while we were in our program. Kelly was in the inaugural cohort of midwifery here at Meyers, and I was the 7th, so it's not really matters.
It's a magic number. 7s are magic numbers. Since I got invited up here and I have a microphone in front of me, I have to say something. Number one, I'm not walking so slowly because I'm 85. I'm walking slowly because I'm 4 weeks out from a knee replacement. So it's taken me a little time to get that knee to work normally. Number two, Kelly was in the first graduating class. And I always tell this story about Kelly because I was a firm believer as director of the midwifery program that as nurses, you didn't need maternity care experience because often you learn the wrong thing being an OB nurse. And unlearning is more difficult than learning. And so Kelly came by one day. She was already enrolled in the master's programs. She was a NICU nurse. And she says to me, can a NICU nurse come into the midwifery program? I said, absolutely. That's ideal. You know that side of the whole process for birthing and the kind of the complicated side. So we started that way. We kept on that way. We've had, as Sasha says, 4 directors, which says a lot about the school, as well as about the midwives in the program. So thank you for being here today. This has been lovely. What did I do? Sorry. I hit the keyboard. I'm done, right?
So the person that was the midwifery director prior to me, who passed the baton on to me, is also here today. And that's Dr. Susan Altman, who nicely reached out to me and said, Sasha, will you do this? And I said, yeah, Susan. And she is here, and I wanted to acknowledge her. Well, both Kelly and I wanted to acknowledge her. Thank you so much for all that you do, Dr. Altman. She promptly retired after she passed the baton on to me, and that's why she looks so beautiful. Thank you so much.
So nice of you. Thanks, Kelly. And unlike Pat, I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so now I'd like to introduce Dr. Angela Amar. Dean Amar is the Dean and Erlene Perkins McGriff Professor at NYU Rory Meyers College of Nursing. Dr. Amar is a leading scholar in gender-based violence and nursing education regarding violence and forensic nursing. She's also a recognized leader in her efforts to advance diversity in nursing leadership across organizations and institutions. Welcome, Dean Amar.
Oh, welcome everyone. So excited to see you all here. Today we gather to celebrate 30 years of midwifery education, leadership, and impact here at NYU Meyers. 30 years of guiding new generations of midwives. It's especially gratifying to see so many of our alum of this program are here with us tonight. Can all alum sort of do this? Yes, very happy to see. And current students who are in the room? Woo, lots. The future generation, future. As the title of this event suggests, midwifery has always been at the intersection of science, advocacy, and humanity. It's about making space for women to be seen and heard and empowered to govern their own bodies and lives. And today, in honoring that legacy, I want to begin with the voice of a midwife who never wore a white coat or held a university degree, but whose wisdom shaped lives and saved lives. Her name was Oni Lee Logan, and she was a granny midwife from Alabama who delivered over 1,000 babies in homes across the South, long before most hospitals would open their doors to Black mothers, with nothing more than her hands, her instincts, her prayers, and her profound belief in the voice of birthing people. In her memoir, Oni says, "When I put my hand on a woman's belly, I don't just feel for the baby's head or feet. I listen, not with my ears, but with my hands, with my heart. The baby talks to me. If you pay attention, you can hear it say, 'I'm ready,' or 'wait a little longer.'" So that kind of listening, that radical, reverent attention, is the heartbeat of midwifery. And it's what we're here to celebrate today. It's a listening that holds space for complexity, that honors culture, and that trusts the body. And it's what we're here to celebrate today. For 3 decades, the NYU Meyers Midwifery Program has trained midwives to listen not only to bodies, but to stories. To science, yes, but also to silence. To the needs of those too often ignored, to the wisdom that lives in data and in the hands, hearts, and minds. We've been cultivating midwives who are not only clinically exceptional, but politically aware, socially engaged, and deeply human in their approach. From bedside to boardroom, from underserved neighborhoods to global health clinics, NYU Meyers midwives have stood at the intersection of clinical excellence, courageous advocacy, and deep humanity. Our midwifery program's first director, Patricia Burkhart, was instrumental in shaping national education standards in the field. Today, our speakers and panelists, including several of our faculty, reflect the diverse roles that midwives play: clinician, activist, community leader, scholar, mentor, and teacher. Midwives are leading conversations in policy, research, public health, and global care. And we're not just delivering babies, we're shaping systems. So we aren't just honoring a program, we're honoring a lineage. We're honoring those who caught babies on dirt floors, those who lobbied for change in city halls, those who stayed up all night, offering not just care, but presence, power, and peace. We're honoring the midwives who came before us, like Oni Lee Logan, and those in this very room who carry that legacy forward with science, courage, and compassion. So welcome.
Thank you, Dean Amar. Now I'd like to introduce Aisha Alevache. She's a certified nurse midwife, also an NYU midwifery alum, and she works in the growing full scope midwifery practice here at NYU Langone. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I just want to talk about our practice, to let you know that this is a really wonderful growing practice. We have 7 awesome midwives, 2 of the midwives that are here right now. And we work a full scope practice where we see patients in clinic and also see patients on the labor floor. We do 24-hour care. So a lot of our patients are very, very thankful to have this practice, because before we did not have that and it was just doctors. And now they want like something more holistic and people to advocate for what it is that they, desire. So I'm very thankful that we're going in January will be 2 years and we're going strong. There was a patient who said today, you guys are very popular. People are really trying to get on your panels, and we're very, very booked, and we really love it. And we still have a lot of work to do. So if you have patients who are interested, send them to us. We also precept the midwifery students that have graduated. So we're very thankful to be able to share what we do and send them out into the world. And they are also doing great as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Aisha. I'd like to introduce a special guest. Adrienne Adams is Speaker of the New York City Council, leading the most diverse and first woman majority council in city history as the body's first African-American speaker. She's also the first woman to represent Council District 28, which includes the neighborhoods of Jamaica, Richmond Hill, Rockdale Village, and South Ozone Park. Under the leadership of Speaker Adams, the council has been tackling long-standing inequities through legislation and budget investments, including women's health, racial disparities in maternal health, support for underserved crime victims, and inequities in the city's workforce. Speaker Adams also helped establish CUNY Reconnect, a program that has helped thousands of former CUNY students of working age return to college in pursuit of a degree that advances their economic opportunities. Her leadership has set a new tone for the council's leadership in addressing the housing crisis, resulting in the approval of over 40 land use projects in 2022 that will produce 12,000 housing units. She also released an aggressive housing agenda with a fair housing framework that prioritizes deepening affordability, housing preservation, and home ownership. Speaker Adams previously served as chair of the Committee on Public Safety and co-chair of the Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus. Prior to serving in the City Council, Speaker Adams served as chair of Queens Community Board 12, a trustee of the Queens Public Library, and co-chair of the Jamaica Now Leadership Council. She previously worked as a corporate trainer and a child development associate instructor. A mother and grandmother, Speaker Adams lives in Jamaica with her husband. Welcome, Speaker Adams.
Thank you so much, Professor Birdsall, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my esteemed honor and pleasure to be with you all this afternoon at this wonderful, wonderful event. Happy 30th anniversary. So proud to be with you. I have to say that I have worked with midwives and have learned so much in their company. I've gained so much knowledge and so much wisdom, so much insight and forethought that I never had before. So I just want to say off the top, thank you for your work. Thank you for the lives that you saved. Thank you for the lives that you brought into this world and will bring into this world, for all that have a future, an amazing future, and holding the hands of those that will bring life onto this earth. I commend you. My heart goes out to you, and I salute you. I am New York City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams, and yeah, I still do have the honor of leading the most diverse and the first ever women majority in the history of the city of New York by being the first African-American leader of the City Council. And once again, it is a joy to be with you all at this 30th anniversary of NYU Meyers Midwifery Program. It's my honor to pursue the urgent work of advancing maternal care alongside all of you. Midwives are critical to improving health outcomes for mothers and their children. This is especially true for Black women and other birthing people who can become pregnant. Too often, we suffer preventable, life-threatening complications because our pain and our symptoms are ignored. This was my mother's experience, and I have not been shy over these past few years to share that in audiences like this, my own experience that I hadn't really taken much notice of until I started doing this work along with you and gaining this knowledge with you. Something in the back of my head say, wait a minute, you've got an experience in this realm, in this world of neglect because you were born to a Black mother. So my experience, and it's not here in the remarks, but I'll just share it with you, particularly with those that are coming into this amazing profession. Now, I came up, as they say, back in the day. A woman of a certain age right now. Thank you very much. Someone mentioned I'm a grandmother. Yeah, that. But I'm a Queens girl, still, proudly. And I was born before Elmhurst Hospital was Elmhurst Hospital. It was the old Elmhurst General. And there was a time where I was the first of two daughters of my parents, and my dad drove a truck for UPS for a he loved driving that stupid truck, but that's a whole other story for another audience. And my mom, she worked a few things. She worked for DMV for a while, and she worked for Metropolitan Life for a while. But anyway, little middle-class family from Queens. And my mother had several, how do we say, false alarms when she was carrying me. So she ended up going back and forth to the hospital, maybe one or two times too much. And they knew her coming into the hospital. And on this one particular evening, she came into the hospital and the nurses looked at her and says, Mrs. Edie, just calm down. You're okay. The baby's not due yet. This was the 9th of December. I was not due until January 14th. And this was maybe my mother's third trip or so into the hospital, to see if everything was okay and to make sure that she was not in labor. So what they did was they put her to the side, they put her on a gurney in a room somewhere out of sight. And within minutes, she was yelling, "Nurse, the baby's here." And there I was, not ready for prime time, but ready for the world. So my mother gave birth to me alone in a room by herself on a gurney in Elmhurst General Hospital back in the day. And back then, things were very different than they are right now, or maybe not so different now that I think about it. Because when I fast forward to now, 2025, and realizing the things that I've learned a lot because of you in this room and your mentors in this room that I've worked with over the past few years in this capacity, is that my story is not that unusual. It is not that strange. Two women and birthing people that experience what my mom experienced and other outcomes like ours. There was a good possibility that I could not be standing here before you today, but there was a reason why I was born. There was a reason why my mother gave birth to me alone on a gurney with nobody but just herself and me. And as I said, my due date was January 14th. I was born on the 9th of December. They kept me in that hospital until my due date of January 14th. And so where parents expected to share one way or another an experience of the holidays with their child in one way or another, either in utero or postpartum, I was unable to be with my parents for the holidays, and that meant a lot to them. Oh, but let's forward to now. We've got a lot of work to do, a lot of work to do, because there are still too many instances in this city of New York, in this nation, the United States of America, where we are still dying at disproportionate rates, preventable deaths, be it people that are about to give birth with pre-existing conditions or those that are coming in just to have their baby. This is supposed to be the easiest thing for women to do. And yet, we are still dying disproportionately in the year 2025. So while we have made positive steps in recent years through increased investments in doula services and mental health care in our city budget, we have to continue to confront these interconnected issues like poverty, accessible housing, mental health care and safety that stress the health of mothers and contribute to maternal mortality. I do believe that one day, because of our collective fight and our collective labor, no pun intended, maternal mortality can become an issue of our past. You know, I convened a committee this year over the past few months. It was a maternal health steering committee, and it made this issue a top priority for our women majority city council by bringing dedicated people across disciplines to work together and fill in the gaps. We can end this public health emergency that has taken too many lives of our loved ones. So the work that we all do is very intentional. I want us to continue to be focused on this work. We in the city council will do our part because we are committed that not one more individual should die today, tonight, tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year due to preventable circumstances. There is none more precious than bringing life into the world. So as I know, New Yorkers are counting on all of us. It's the least we can do. It's the least that we owe to our mothers, who are the backbone of our families and without whom there is no life. Midwives, you are the key to achieving health equity. And I thank you once again from the bottom of my heart for your tireless work, your unending care, and your infinite love. I congratulate you with everything that is within me on this, the 30th anniversary milestone of this critical program. God bless you all and thank you.
Thank you so much, City Council Speaker Adams. It's now my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Monica McLemore. Dr. Monica McLemore is visiting professor at NYU Meyers and is a noted scholar of anti-racist birth equity research and is a national expert on reproductive health, rights, and justice. Prior to joining NYU Meyers, Dr. McLemore was a tenured professor holding the endowed chair for health promotion and is a director of the Manning Price Bratland Center for Anti-Racism and Equity in Nursing at the University of Washington. Over a career spanning more than 3 decades, Dr. McLemore has distinguished herself as a scientist and clinician whose work advancing the understanding of reproductive health and justice has been cited in various ways across many platforms. Welcome, Dr. McLemore.
That's how today is gone. How y'all doing? Let's try that again. How y'all doing? Is there a clicker that I can use? Thank you, nice person that's been taking care of me. So I sent my clone to come do this keynote today because as a good public health person, will you help me with this again, please? Okay, thank you. I had my COVID and flu shots in my left arm and my acetaminophen is finally kicking in. So I feel like myself again, but I'm gonna let my clone continue to speak. Couple of different things. First of all, it's so great to look out in this room and see all the faces that are here. This is such a huge celebration. And I have to be really blunt. And I like to demystify myths about me. I'm not a midwife, but I want to play one on TV. Right? There are so many of you who have given me grace and held me today, looking at Lexi, looking at Sasha, looking at Kelly. Thank you. Because today has been a really long and really hard day. I know Sharon's going to come late because she's teaching, because we started our morning with Cecilia, Dr. Birdsall, teaching our undergrad classes. That's what midwives do, right? I have a lot of pictures for you. I'm going to tell you a lot of stories because this is a celebratory event, and I'm really grateful that I get to spend time around the world with midwives because you're magical, you're special. You are the best of our discipline and our profession, and I have the deepest amount of reverence and respect for you and all that you do. So hopefully this will be a compendium of just how much you've done and how much we might be able to do. When I was at the University of Washington, I learned that land acknowledgements are really important. And at some point in all 5 states where I'm licensed, I want to be able to appropriately name the ancestral individuals who've been the caretakers of this land. And I think it's really important that we take a moment to acknowledge them. At the same time, as a Black American whose ancestors are on the Dawes rolls, it would be completely impossible for me to talk about land without talking about the labor that built our country. Telling the truth in times of crisis and strife is an important thing that I've learned from midwives. I also would be remiss if I was going to give a talk about midwifery to not talk about the founding mothers of reproductive justice. Reproductive justice is to really think through this idea that 12 Black women in 1994 theorized this crazy notion that pro-life and pro-choice was too simple to talk about the lives of Black women. That we needed to say things like everybody has a human right to have children, to not have children, and to parent the children that they already have in safe and healthy communities. You know how vanguard that was in 1994? Of those 12 mothers of reproductive justice, this is also the 30-year anniversary of reproductive justice. This is from the gala that they had in Washington, D.C. last year. 11 of them are still alive. They deserve their flowers now. One is a MacArthur Genius Award winner. If you don't know their names, I usually have a slide that does have their names on it. I'm happy to let you know who they are because they theorized a transformative framework that I think a lot of midwives use and believe in and think about. And I believe in giving people their flowers when they're alive. I don't have to tell this room that midwifery is a relational and relationship-based model of care. Dr. McLemore, what do you mean by that? Right? We sit with people. We are witnesses to their lives. We engage with them. We listen to their hopes, their dreams, their stories. their insights. It is such a gift to be with people of childbearing age, regardless of what their reproductive trajectory looks like. When I think about the midwives, the doulas, the researchers, the IBCLCs, our colleagues, Sharice Scott from Sister Reach, Sister Love, Sister Song, Black women have known that midwifery was the backbone of reproductive justice because it is a framework that allows for us to meet the people that we serve where they are. When we conducted this study with Saraswati Vidam, who is a midwife from the University of British Columbia, through the Giving Voice to Mothers study, we asked the participants what they wanted to be called. They said mothers. We asked what representation they wanted to have. They wanted pregnant bellies and bodies, but no faces, to be as inclusive as possible. When I saw these data, this taught me something really, really important. My heart was broken. That regardless of race or ethnicity, that 1 in 6 pregnant people experience mistreatment, regardless of race or ethnicity. When you really drill down on mistreatment, we're talking about things like violation of physical privacy, withholding care from people, being shouted at or scolded, right? This study was oversampled. 3,000 people in the United States, oversampled for people of color. This was one of the most interesting findings. Oh, I thought I had a pointer on here. Maybe I don't. Okay. That when you did add in race or ethnicity, everybody experienced mistreatment. Dr. McLemore, how do white people experience mistreatment? Oh, because they were partnered to people of color. When they went in to seek care, they were discriminated against, people asking them if those were their children, right? When I saw these data, I didn't blame healthcare workers. I didn't blame patients. I blame society. And I blame the fact that our workplaces are inhumane. But midwives have always known this, right? That's why they work in birth centers. That's why they work in homes. That's why they work in hospitals. The setting where they work allows them to create the relationships that are necessary for excellent health outcomes. The rest of healthcare has a lot to learn from midwives about this. Some public health colleagues, sociologists, liberal arts folks, they came to me and said, Dr. McLemore, we need to have a mini conference reminding people why midwifery is public health. How many people in this room know that almost all the health professions grew up out of public health, right? Many of our professional organizations was born at APHA, right? When you look at the American Medical Association, you look at like the American College of Nurse Midwives, even when you look at the Association of Women's Health Obstetric and Neonatal Nursing, many of them were chartered and born at the American Public Health Association. So this idea that you would separate the care that people need across the reproductive trajectory from the environment in which that care was being provided was weird. It is weird, right? Midwives have always known this. Here in New York City, public health nurses, when you think about Lillian Wald and the Henry Street House and public health nursing, a lot of people don't know that Margaret Sanger was a part of that group as a nurse. Yes, the Margaret Sanger who started Planned Parenthood, who was notoriously anti-abortion, but very pro-contraception, right? She hung out with midwives too, because despite the fact that she became a eugenicist and was crazy at the end of her life, she knew that midwives understood relational care. I hope that every student midwife understands that you are in relationship with every life you touch, every person you touch. You are one of the most meaningful people in people's lives during their reproductive trajectory. What an honor, what a gift. And I revere you for being willing to accept that call. How many people know about the Black Midwifery Fellowship? Right? Okay. You'll keep seeing Dr. Nakia Grayson, Dr. Michelle Drew. I'm going to name our contemporary Black midwives who are doing some of the most vanguard work in the country because they are really leading the charge, right? When I think about choices in Memphis, Tennessee, right? I've been there, 6 times now? I mean, you got a director, a person who does clinical work sitting right in this room with some of the most vanguard work, trying to care for the most vulnerable. The Black Midwifery Fellowship was started by philanthropy to address the need that we needed more Black midwives, to address the historical harms of the discrediting of the Black grand midwives. You know, Representative Adams told a really important and necessary story. I was a preemie in 1969. My birthday is on New Year's Eve, though. Capricorn. Okay, right? My sister Stephanie was born in Dothan, Alabama, in my mother's birthplace. My grandmother caught her in Dothan, Alabama. Right? We have a Black Midwifery Fellowship because we want to restore the practices. I mean, on plantations, midwives was taking care of everybody before they were discredited in 1921 because of Shepherd Towner. They were taking care of everybody. And for that time, they did a relatively good job. We can't forget history. We will never move forward in the future. Midwives remind us of this. Bethany Golden, and I, despite the fact that I'm trying to play a midwife on TV, I actually support this is the 7th midwife who's gotten a PhD, whose dissertation I've been on, because I think the knowledge base for midwifery, the science base for midwifery can be built out beyond understanding outcomes compared to physicians. I said it. I'm gonna say a lot of very controversial things. And one of them is there are things about midwifery practice that we don't understand. Some of which I don't think scientifically can be understood because it's quite frankly magic. But some of it, I think we have a lot of lessons that we can learn. And one of them was during telehealth, during COVID, during lockdown. There were very distinct perspectives that midwives had around trying to translate group prenatal care innovations created by midwives. Nurse-family partnership innovations created by midwives. This radical idea that somehow if you paired patients and nurses and midwives together to create a care plan over time, that you might be able to improve outcomes. That shouldn't be rocket science to anybody in this room, right? Or this idea, if you let peer-to-peer education happen in group prenatal care, you cohort pregnant people all at the same time, let them take their own vital signs. Let them learn from each other. Take them aside for confidential things that you need to talk to them about, but provide care in a group. You know how radical that was when Sharon Rising proposed to do that? And that should be the model of care when we're talking about building families and communities. And yet we can't fund it or finance it, right? We have to take back from insurers and payers, physicians, these models of care, because midwives know how to do this and they can teach the rest of us how to do this. When I think about the next frontier, right, there's a lot of attention right now going on in midwifery. Anybody know what the birth fund is? You see Eileen Weintraub and all these Hollywood people, and Beyonce's mom just donated to them because they're funding midwifery scholarships directly, but they're not funding midwives or the preceptors that's supposed to teach them. I said it. Right? Or how we're now going to see a second round of Gates funding for $100 million in women's health, and hopefully it won't just go to biotech and pharma. I said it, right? Nobody wants to pay for the messiness of the human experience because we're going to AI ourselves out of birth outcomes too, right? Philanthropy is really starting to understand we need more midwives, but we need the constellation of services that make the magic work for midwives. Why do you think people are focusing on birth centers? Right? It's not because, you know, they want to go up against insurance companies or hospitals that shutting down obstetric units, or they don't want to provide rural care, or, oh, we can't restore the money for the Medicaid cuts, right? I keep asking people, what's the plan? I'm really mad. You know what? I'm really mad. I'm going to say this. I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it because I've been saying it more often. I'm not, look, my shoulder not hurting them, clear. If anybody was going to break healthcare and try to fix it, shouldn't they have been nurses? Is anybody besides me mad that HHS didn't call me up to ask me, why are you calling up Doge? I don't need you to call up 23-year-old engineers. You could have called up nurses and midwives. We could have told you how to fix that yesterday. And I'm really mad that nobody called me. Anybody in here get a call? Right? We had models of care. If we were going to break healthcare, if anybody was going to do that, it should have been nursing and midwifery. And we need to say that more often. But philanthropy is really starting to understand that you can't just fund midwives. You have to fund all the other supports along with them in order to make that magic work. Just like you can't pick up midwives and just drop them in the hospital and then magically expect that your birth outcomes are going to be better. That's not a thing, right? We need to let the midwives be magical, and we need to fund that. And I need really smart people in this room to help me think about how do we write that up and convince them, because that's actually really what needs to happen. You know how to care for people. You know how to love on people. You know how to meet people where they are. You know how to believe in people, right? That's what we're celebrating here. You've taught the students how to do that. And that's why the world is so much better when we have midwives. I'm going the wrong way. I'm like, that's the wrong spot. Okay. In 2022, the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, of which, full disclosure, I used to be the secretary of the board, decided to host a private convening with the Center for Reproductive Rights, which is headquartered here in New York City. And we wanted to talk about a Black birth equity project with Black midwives. And you'll see a lot of national faces that you recognize in this picture, because we really wanted to strategize and think about and drive our own agenda around what midwifery should look like. I am so lucky that I came to Meyers, because midwifery is so strong here, that I know many, if not all, the midwives here, that there's a shared vision about what the future should look like, and that there's motivation and institutional support for us to achieve that. I'm going to be spending a whole lot of time on this while I'm here, because this needs to happen. And we are the people who can do it. We have been talking about strategic partnerships and really thinking about the full integration of reproductive justice, not just into our curriculum and not just into our policy agenda, but in the very air that we breathe. We just had our faculty retreat, and it was really centered on student-centeredness. And I see parallels between student-centeredness and reproductive justice, not just because our students are of reproductive age, right? But that we are serving people womb to tomb. And as long as we're serving people from womb to tomb, you're talking about intergenerational reproductive justice. And that's what we need midwives for, because they know how to do that. There are several blueprints right now that I'm hoping that we will be able to utilize, because I have deep concerns and lots of questions. So for people who are feeling either grumpy, frustrated, panicked, confused in this current moment about all the chaos that's sort of happening with our federal agencies around health and science, let me give you some questions to ask people that hopefully you can get some answers to. The first one is, what's the plan? How are we supposed to take care of people if half the births in the United States are covered by Medicaid? And we just cut $800 million from Medicaid, right, starting in 2027. So if half the births in the country are covered by Medicaid, what's the plan? Right? And demand an answer. Because in my mind, if that is the insurance that half the births in this country use to be able to cover those pregnancies, and we say we're pro-family or pro-life, we say we're reproductive justice informed, then what's the plan to take care of those people? Or here's another question, right? If we have crisis pregnancy centers, pregnancy help centers, we have religiously affiliated institutions trying to provide guidance and counseling to pregnant people, what y'all doing? Right? If you are going to be receiving taxpayer dollars to support pregnant people, maybe it's time for a Freedom of Information Act request around what they're doing with that money. Y'all know me, I believe in litigation and legislation. A lot of people, but think about it. We have to be strategic in our questioning. Midwives are very good at that. Right? You're not just receivers of information. You elicit the truth from people. Why? Because the public trusts you. So as a discipline and as a profession, I think Meyers has another incredible 30 years that we will impact the rest of the country in terms of being the vanguard, not only in our science, but our advocacy and our practice. You just heard about the Langone practice here. Sounds like they bursting at the seams. That's a good thing, because the more that the public understands the value of midwifery care, the more they will fight for it, the more they will vote for it, the more they will join us in advocating for it. This is a project that Dr. Molly Altman, who was a postdoc with me, and Dr. Ellen Solis, who is the midwifery director at the University of Washington, have really been moving forward because they understood early on that we need to do some work in midwifery education. I think we have been vanguard at Meyers in our midwifery education program. And I think we can join and take the next step around people who are trying to not only reclaim midwifery, but people who are trying to create easier pathways to midwifery, less debt, better preceptor experiences, improve clinical sites. I think we can lead this work as we have for the last 30 years. Next week is the Congressional Black Caucus annual legislative meeting in Washington, D.C. And the National Black Nurses Association are hosting sessions around reproductive health rights and justice. Guess who's being highlighted? Midwives, right? Dr. Janet Williams will be there. Dr. Lucinda Canty will be there. Having a stage with our congressional delegates, having a stage with the staffers to directly talk to midwives, right? You don't need me to speak with and for you. You can speak for yourselves. But it does mean that people like me and others like me have to make space for you. We can't revere you in our hearts, but not bring you in the room, right? Which means we have to think differently about your academic role, your clinical responsibilities, your teaching load, right? You need the freedom and the space to do the magical things that you do. And we have to figure that out together. I have been working, and I think there's some representatives from the Center for Reproductive Rights in the room, a lot with lawyers, because there are assaults, attacks on your practice. And regardless of how you feel about scopes of practice in different states, I am of the mindset, and anybody who knows me knows this, I am agnostic when it comes to midwifery education. I work with Jeannie Joseph, who has no degree in midwifery and runs Common Sense Childbirth. I work with Tanya Smith Johnson. Many of you know she's one of my best friends and sorority sisters, who runs the College of midwifery, which is a CPM school. And clearly I work with my nurse midwifery colleagues. We have to get through this together. And if that means suing until we can figure out how not to criminalize each other, then that's what I'm gonna do. Because white supremacy did that, right? That separated midwives from each other to be able to work across disciplines, across trainings, across settings, and across time. That was purposive. We don't have to buy into that. But one of the only tools we have right now, because the laws are set up to criminalize each other, is to be able to make sure the widest range of people can provide care. Before many federal agencies were disappeared, the Government Accountability Office had commissioned a report from Congress around the midwifery workforce and midwifery education. And I'm really lucky that my work and a whole lot of these folks' work is cited in that report. There's a roadmap. We know how to fund nursing education. We know how to fund nurse midwifery education. And we know what we need and the geographic distribution of being able to do it. We have to blow up Congress's phone, email, social media, all the things, and tell them to do it. We don't need another report. We don't have to study this. We have these data. We know what's necessary for us to move forward. It is our job as we the people, they work for us, to tell them that this is what we need. We have nurse researchers right now who are guest editors at Health Equity Journal, of which I'm the editor-in-chief, really reimagining what perinatal care could look like. The number of submissions we've had for that call has been overwhelming because people have been writing and collecting data and having midwifery-led projects that deserve to see the light of day. So we're gonna try and find new money so we can publish all the papers and not just the 15 that we actually have money to publish now. I have read some of the most imaginative, important science from these submissions that have come from you. You're not just the woo, crystal, love on everybody, pour out the water, we are the world folk. Y'all are scientists, advocates, policy wonks, right? And we need that narrative to roll off everybody's lips, to understand that you're also magical. This is the Actions Program. This was a whole group of people that I hope to bring to Meyers, where we're really gonna have DNP and PhD education funded together using a reproductive justice lens to be able to have community-based clinical care provision. This is the $6 million grant that's been killing me, that I'm almost ready to submit. I believe so much firmly in the future. I believe so much that this is all temporary, that all the chaos and panic that we've dealt with over the last 9 months. Why do I believe that? Because midwives reassure me of that every day. The midwifery model of care, the midwifery presence, midwifery attention, it's infectious. And I'm really, really grateful that I have proximity to you all. At some point, we are going to bring midwifery to historically Black colleges and universities, the #1 producers of STEM graduates in the country. Of the 108 accredited historically Black colleges and universities and minority serving institutions that are certified and accredited, 5 have schools of public health, nursing, dentistry, pharmacy, social work, physical therapy. 0 currently have programs in midwifery. 6 are in discussion, but 0 have active programs. The largest producer of STEM graduates in the country. And our faculty are leading some of those initiatives at those 6 institutions. Thank you. This was our Howard retreat. I was so proud to be there. I cannot tell you how much it meant to be at Howard University in Washington, D.C. with our colleagues to really vision and dream about our partnership. Stay tuned for this, because we have a name now. We about to have a website and we're gonna have a logo. It's gonna be really fun. Right? Opportunities for students, opportunities for midwives. Who we partner in this current moment matters, and we need to listen to midwifery. They've been through rough times. They've been through challenging times. They've been through triumphant times. We need to listen to them in this moment, and we need to get out of the way and let them lead. Thank you so much for letting me be here to honor, witness, and to lift you up. Thank you so much for the work that you do every day. Thank you for our future midwives. And I'll take any questions if I have a few minutes to be able to do so. Thank you. Questions, comments, suggestions, feedback? Y'all hungry? They're like, oh, we trying to get something to eat. Oh, it's the dean. Oh, and that's Dr. Montalvo. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Come on, Monica. Not working.
I love your presentation. You spoke with such, well, certainly knowledge, but certainly almost in poetic form about how midwifery and midwives can truly make a difference, despite the fact that we were all, whether black or white, we were all disavowed and destroyed in the early 1900s. The real question I have is, when you're battling the power structure of the medical institution that is our healthcare system, how, I mean, it's more than advocating, because you got to start somewhere. I understand that. And I doubt you have a magic bullet, but please, if you do, would you tell us, how do we get past the power structure that dictates 98% of the births in this country are in hospitals that are dictated by physicians?
Yeah, 3 words for you. Class action lawsuit. Don't think I'm kidding, right? I'm not kidding, right? Class action lawsuit. Because check this out. If we decided that, and Dr. Scott, I was on a national webinar before I came to keynote this with Academy Health, but Dr. Karen Scott has said, and I know Charles Johnson has said this as well for Moms for Cure. But if we decided that trauma and emotional harm from poor birth experiences or using patient-reported experience measures, if we weren't just looking at poor clinical outcomes as an adverse event, but if experiences of racism was an adverse event, disrespect and mistreatment was an adverse event, then we could have a class action lawsuit. Right? Because I mean, if the law is actually really the only thing, medical legal is the thing that maintains physician hierarchy in healthcare. Right? Somebody has to be accountable and suable if something unfortunate happens, right? And so medicine has positioned itself to be that group. But the NAACP told us this during civil rights, right? That if you sue as a class, then you can advance policies and procedures that actually benefit larger numbers of individuals. So I'm a big fan. I know it's controversial, but I believe in class action lawsuits. Until we can have a decision that we're actually going to have a health system, because I don't think we have a health system. I think we have a health insurance system. And I'm the chair of the Washington State Exchange. 21 states have exchanges that were set up by under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. And I'm the chair of the board of Washington State. And I can tell you, until we fix healthcare financing, this physician supremacy and discrediting of midwives is going to continue to be a thing. Unless we have some class action lawsuit. It's time for radical. I mean, like, we just saw government get broken in 90 days. We need every crazy idea that people in this room have in order for us to think about how do we advance midwifery. Because we've already been shown that if you get enough people with enough power, you can do crazy things. And I happen to be crazy, so, right? That would be my approach. I mean, otherwise it's civil disobedience in healthcare. That can be another approach, but everybody has to do it. Right? I mean, think about it. If every Pac-12 school teamed up with the academic medical centers and said, we can't function without our federal funding, do you think we would be in the situation we're in right now? Especially when you're talking about canceling football in the fall? Or who were the 100 people, right? There was a whole RFP that went out around autism and vaccines. Who was the 100 people that applied for that? Because think about it, if nobody would have applied for it, that wouldn't have been the thing. But you affirm things when you participate, but it's only powerful when everybody does. And I thought we learned that during boycotts. Do I have time for Montalvo or no?
Maybe like one or two more questions if people want to chat with you if they have joined the networking. One more. She had her hand up.
Yeah, Dr. Montalvo. Hey, well, y'all know Dr. Wanda from Penn. Hey, how you doing, my dear?
How
It's
are
good
you?
to see you.
Nice to see you too. I love spot on all the things you said about litigation
Mhm.
and the courage that it requires to have a unified voice against this madness because it's a hot mess. But when we look at the evidence and the opportunities to amplify the messages, who are we not targeting that we're missing?
Okay. This is real controversial, but again, in the United States, yes, 98% of births happen in hospitals. But the majority of people who have employer-sponsored health insurance, right? Who's talking to the employers? Why do our employers get to dictate what kind of care we receive? I'm just asking, I mean, like if you work at a religiously affiliated institution, then you have a cafeteria plan of things that only they let you offer because, right? So if we untethered employer-sponsored health insurance from employment, and this is why the gig cases, keep your eye on the Lyfts and the Uber lawsuits and all the other stuff, because it's upending the W-2 workers in a country and what we tie that stuff to, right? The other analogy I always use is like, why do we have pregnancy disability when pregnancy isn't a disease, it's not a disability? Well, that was a retrofit, right? People compromised and negotiated with the employers to be able to provide a benefit for pregnant people. And even then it was biased until the Affordable Care Act came out, right? Who's talking to the employers? Because they have a lot of control over what access to healthcare we have because we tethered insurance to employment. And a lot of young people not feeling this, and it's not just because they've been able to stay on their parents' health insurance because they were 26, right? They don't understand. I mean, even in our class, like one of the big questions that people have is healthcare financing. Why do the employer, right? They don't understand the whole Henry Ford, there's a whole historical rationalization behind insurance being tethered to employment that a lot of people don't understand, and that we could reimagine all of that, but we got to educate the public about that. Make sense? There was one more question, but I don't know that I have time. One more? Okay. I do what they tell me to do. Tell me your name, my dear. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, my name is Jasmine Akadri. I'm an undergrad.
Oh, hey, yes, yes. Undergrad asking the last question. You in my class? Because I'm excited.
Okay, so full disclosure, I am a returning student, I guess, traditional type. I have 2 children, but my thing I grew up watching called a midwife.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I'm here. During watching that, in my mind, I was talking to my friends right here, and this is my goal, like community involvement as far as like taking midwifery from the hands of, like you say, the insurance and the government, and kind of doing in the show, call the midwife, get on your bike, ride around, do the things, and exclude the big farmer and all of that, where we're just pushing skills, understanding, and magic, essentially. How do you propose we organize to get that again?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Thank you for your visioning your dreaming. Thank you for being here. Here's the most frustrating answer you're going to hear. Because it's frustrating for me to say, but it's the truth. I am a maintainer. The reason I can participate in lawsuits around the country and sue to have things maintained or returned to what they were before January 20th is because I sit in that loci of power. That doesn't make me uniquely qualified to envision what the future should look like. So I always tell people, like the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid were developed in my lifetime. Right, they were passed congressionally in 1968. I was born in 69, right? We just celebrated the anniversary of September 11th. The Department of Homeland Security didn't exist before that. People act like these entities have been around since the beginning of time, and it's not true. The problem is who's visioning about what we can replace all that with while some people like me try to maintain what we had. Everybody can't be doing the same work at the same time. Everybody want to be resistance and fighting and all this stuff. I'm like, who's dreaming about what's going to replace that? Because I know I don't have time to do that, right? So a part of it really is if we want to get back to call to midwife, if we want to create futures where that's possible, then let some of us fight the fight in the now, and then some of y'all got to organize about what's going to replace what we've already lost, right? Because I don't want to build back better. I want to build back different. Make sense? So organizing means that either generationally or institutionally or geographically or whatever it is, that we get real clear about who are the maintainers. Oh, let's keep what we got because you can't just throw that out with the bathwater. And then who are the builders? Who are the dreamers? Who are the workers, like the worker bees, right? We have to think about organization in that way. Whereas I think too many people are thinking about organization with like wave your magic wand and all of a sudden we going to be back in call to midwife. No, it requires work and it requires structure. And I don't know how many people are thinking about it that way. Makes sense? Awesome. I appreciate you all. Yeah, my stuff is up there. Oh, and I don't think I'm in the directory for NYU, but I think my like numbered email is, but I also am mclemore.m@nyu.edu if you have questions that I couldn't answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. McLemore. At this time, we're excited to share a special message from the New York State Senator, Samra G. Brooke, who serves as the chair of the Committee on Mental Health.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to my friends at NYU Langone for inviting me to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Midwifery Program at NYU Meyers College of Nursing. I'm Senator Samra Brooke, and I represent the 55th District in New York State. I serve as the chair of the Senate Mental Health Committee, and importantly for tonight, an avid champion for maternal health care. For years, I have remained deeply committed to addressing our state's maternal mortality crisis and fighting to expand access to doula care as well as midwifery care as a life-saving resource. That's why I recognize the profound significance of this moment. In a time when reproductive rights are being stripped away from us, we need the expertise and cultural competency of midwives to support our vulnerable birthing individuals. Midwives are more than just caregivers. They have expert knowledge and demonstrated skills in caring for women well beyond the birthing process. Midwives help expecting mothers make informed choices about their labor. You fill in knowledge and gaps about pregnancy, labor, and delivery, provide checkups, screenings, vaccinations, and treatments, and of course can improve outcomes for mental health, education, and community health at large. The importance of reproductive education, especially in our current times, cannot be overstated. So I want to give a huge thank you to all who are a part of making change in this world. Thank you for being a part of a program that uplifts, heals, and empowers birthing individuals to make decisions about their health and improve birthing outcomes for all. Thank you again. Enjoy the celebration.
We had midwives stand at the beginning, but I want to take a minute to acknowledge the presence with us of one of the mothers of midwifery in New York City, Phyllis Lynn. Thank you. Meyers has been here for 30 years. Thank you for your 50 years of service. At this time, we're going to transition to the panel discussion portion of our program. Our speakers today, we have Sasha James Contarelli, Clinical Associate Professor and Director of our Midwifery Program at Rory Meyers. She's our moderator. We have Rose Pierre-Louis, Executive Director of the NYU McSilver Institute for Poverty Policy and Research. Delise Robertson, our Clinical Associate Professor and Director of the Psych Mental Health Nurse Practitioner Program at Meyers. And Kelly Walker, our Senior Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and Clinical Associate Professor at Meyers. So welcome up.
Okay, she has to turn on. Okay, no. Okay.
So I'll let them get situated. Unfortunately, there was supposed to be Dr. Wendy Wilcox with us today, but she's stuck on the tarmac in DC and a third delay, and there's a ground stop at LaGuardia, so she won't be here with us today, but really wanted to be here to join in the conversation. And this is a conversation that I'm having with my friends and colleagues, and thank you all for being here. I am a two-time grad of NYU and proud to be a midwifery graduate here from NYU. It wasn't Meyers at the time. We've gone through many changes, as Dr. McLemore has stated. Midwifery, even at Meyers, has gone through many changes, and we've been in quite a few schools. But we've landed, thank God, in Meyers and have had a home here. But I wanted to have a discussion with you guys. And I pick for this panel was very intentional because in talking about midwifery in art, science, policy, advocacy, and research, especially and in education, of course, I wanted to get some representatives here from Meyers that would, or an NYU at large, that would talk about our journey and where could we go from here at Meyers. So, in starting off the conversation, I wanted to ask, in your perspective, and anyone can answer this because this is a conversation, your perspective or your life, personally, professionally, how has midwifery influenced you? For anyone on the panel.
I'll start. I love this question. I will just say we had preview of the questions and I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about bravery, right? You have to be brave to be in this space. And I think when you are invited to take care of people, right, that privilege, that bravery shows up in a lot of different ways. It's advocacy. It's being relentless to provide excellent care. It's being relentless in educating midwives and making sure they're getting the education that they need to take care of people. And I think that being in the first class, the thing that was special that Dr. Burkhart brought was she changed midwifery education at the time in 1995 was you had to be a labor and delivery nurse. And that's a great profession and an entry point, but it limited people like myself, who was an undergrad 7 years prior, saw a midwife at hospital, St. Luke's Roosevelt, attend a birth. And I thought, I'm going to do that. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know where I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And that was a long, that was the foundation, but I was able to take that throughout my career. Also, midwifery is with patients and taking care of pregnant people, but it's also educating midwives and it's sitting in policy. So I brought that into other spaces. And I think that bravery is a really important piece of it.
Excellent response, Kelly. So for me, I would take the position of both personal and professional. For me, my personal experience with midwifery and midwives was when I was giving birth to my son and having that advocate in the room who said, no, listen to her. she's experiencing pain. She was in the operating room with me and my obstetrician, and I was feeling the scalpel. And that midwife was the one who said, no, pause, we have to stop. Something is wrong, she shouldn't be feeling pain. And literally hearing her going back and forth with the anesthesiologist while I'm experiencing pain during childbirth. And so that's my personal perspective, and feeling so grateful for her being in that room and saying, no, listen. On the professional side, as a psych mental health nurse practitioner, I've had the honor of working with midwives to co-manage patients around mental health well-being through pregnancy and beyond. And the role of mental health in partnering and caring for patients, in realizing the importance of not just doing it retroactively in addressing mental health issues, but really thinking about what it means to screen and assess and prioritize wellness throughout pregnancy and beyond. So advocacy, one, and two, being forefront in the experience of working with midwives in the amazing work. Dr. McLemore calls it magic. I do too. It is magical. And I've always been, in this space of like, well, do I want to be a midwife? I feel like I do, but it's late. So, but working with them and having my colleagues who I constantly can bounce stories off of and get their concepts of like what it is to be this magical person as a provider, and how can I partner with you in doing that?
Hi, everyone. Happy 30th to midwifery at Meyers. I'm a lawyer. I'm actually a recovering lawyer. So you might be wondering why I'm here, but policy is something that I think in institutions like NYU and programs like midwifery and all the work and the advocacy that we're doing is something that has to be woven through the work. It's the research, it's clinical practice, it's the advocacy, but the policy too. My experience is I was born in the 60s, 1964, firstborn. My mother had a second child that was stillborn. And for a long time, she felt it was harm that was done to her at the hospital, which is why she carried full term. And she had a stillbirth. I'm Haitian by descent, and through my journeys, I was 3 when my mother gave birth, but it was later in my teen years where I learned of this experience, which really ignited my interest around the birthing process. And through my journeys to Haiti, I had the opportunity to meet midwives and to see, when you look at this through the power of poverty, lack of access of resources, or being under-resourced, that indeed midwives were magical. And we say in Haiti that, I'm not crying, this is allergies happening right now. So I just want you to know, and I apologize for that, that women are the potomitan. We are the structural beam. And for me, that's what midwives are. They are the structural beams. There is a reverence. There is the extraordinary things that they do in centering the person that is giving birth. And I got to see that. And of course, I got to know Martine Jean-Baptiste, who is an extraordinary leader, and so proud that she is from our community and continuing that work. After I left the practice of law, I went into politics and served for 8 years as the Manhattan Deputy Borough President. During that time, St. Vincent's closed. And there was the whole challenges. Do you remember that, with midwives? And kudos to Scott Stringer, who was really at the forefront in trying to negotiate on behalf of midwives. So this was my introduction on the policy level to this work. And then fast forward, becoming the commissioner of the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. Women's rights, anti-violence movement has been the through line of my work, and really coming to understand the intersection of IPV and pregnancy and the occurrence of it. And now being at the McSilver Institute and looking at our work, not only through the lens of poverty, racism, sexism, all of the things that we know about, having the opportunity to branch out as executive director, it's my third year, into an area that brings forward all of my experience, which is around maternal health, and meeting Sasha and Delise and Meyers and IEHE here at Langone, and having this incredible policy focused partnership. And I think there's a lot more to come, and really excited for the great things we will do along with all of you.
Thank you so much. And when I will go back, step back a little bit. Number one, Miss Lynn, when I graduated from midwifery, our class was 12. Number of the in the group, 12 of us. And Miss Lynn offered all of us a job at Maimonides upon graduation. I'm the only one that said no. And I got cussed out, but because I decided to go rural, but at Maimonides, and that's the dedication to midwifery. And this panel that we have here today, in talking about, and Dr. McLemore, you set us up so good, so well for this, and talking about midwives and what we do and how we influence and impact in so many different arenas. How do you guys see us increasing the number of midwives, increasing the number of midwife scientists, policy and advocacy folks, the number of midwifery educators, the number of folks that you're doing the work, because we got to do the magic at the bedside. We still got to touch and be there for the folks. How do you see us increasing that number, especially here at Meyers and in New York City?
I think I've thought about this a lot, as I was a program director in midwifery for a long time. And we've been talking about this for a long time. And I think we need funding, right? We need money, we need dollars behind the education, that education piece and that investment. And again, when people are donating to us, right? Scholarships. Some of the barriers to being in education is the finance, right? And many midwives are going to school while also caregivers for family members and also working full-time at least. And so there are barriers there that we need to be able to provide financial stability so people can go back to school. I also think about when we ask people to precept, and I have called Miss Lynn and I've asked her to precept students, and maybe she yelled at me a tiny bit and then accepted the students into the site because she was committed to educating as many of our practice partners here to educating midwives. But I think there's an opportunity for schools and programs. What can we also do to help support the practices, right? Because we have to generate income, and these things are very important. So I think about, we want to place students, we want them to have this great experience. What can we do as educators to support practices, whether it's home birth or birth centers? And I think about, like, this might be the next partnership that we want to think about, in that we are really building midwifery in all spaces.
Yeah, I agree. I think in addition to the resourcing around coming into school, it's also thinking about when students come in and identify a plan to commit to the program, when they leave to go out into the community to work, what are the tuition reimbursement opportunities that there are? Because if you want folks to commit to the work, then we always need to think about, okay, so if National Health Service Corps goes away, well, what are the other resources that we're going to put in place to make sure that it's sustainable for them to continue to practice?
So I'm glad that our speaker, Adrienne Adams, was here today, because the City Council just announced a fellowship for social workers at CUNY. We should be asking the same thing. And what I would say is an opportunity for all of us is that come January 2026, we will have a new mayor, a new controller, a new city council, a new city council speaker, and a mayor. now is the time to be thinking about what do we want to have as our ask on the education front in terms of midwifery? What's the policy paper that is offering? So we can say, yes, the ceiling is gonna fall from the sky and healthcare, but we're fighting with a whole bunch of other healthcare. So what is the policy paper that we are putting out along with the healthcare vision, as Dr. McLemore said? How are we doing that now? Not after they're inaugurated and everyone is busting down their door for the next year. So that to me is a charge in terms of how do we get the funding? We should be going to foundations, but we have to map out the vision. This is why we think it is beneficial to healthcare, to women. I also think that we need to have more opportunities to talk directly to women about the importance of midwifery, because I do think a lot of us think, I'm pregnant, I got to go to my OBGYN, right? But we're not having conversations with women's organizations, such as the Junior League. I'm a member of the Lynx. I'm a Delta. There's so many women's organizations. Did I hear? Hey, Soror, good to see you. Sorry, we digress. So there's so many women's organizations that do really important work, but more importantly, they fundraise. What we did for us with IEHE and McSilver, I don't know if Damali, I didn't see. Hi, Damali. So Dr. Damali Wilson, who's a nurse, she is our fellow in residence, is a joint fellow with a focus on maternal health and reproductive health. Those are the kinds of strategic partnerships that need to happen. But I'm saying right now, in terms of the ask that we want to make of city and state government, we are the great beneficiaries of having individuals like Senator Brooke, Assembly Member Rodney's Bichot Hermelin, Farah Lewis in the City Council, and Michael Solage, and Senator Leah Webb. We need to form that brain trust of the practice, the policy, the advocacy, the innovation, right? Why does it all matter? Why is this a tremendous opportunity in 2026 to begin to renew the conversation in this area? And certainly, if you don't know by now, I'd love to be part of those conversations.
So I selfishly stated I wanted to have conversations with you guys because I deeply care for these folks that are on the panel. If you haven't noticed, Dr. Kelly Walker and I have known each other for a very long time. And when I heard there was a position open, I said, can you please apply? Because Meyers needs you and NYU needs you back. And I'm so happy that Dean Amar agreed, even though I had no influence in that. But so to having midwife at the forefront of education and understanding, especially in nursing, when we are trying to be competency-based and move things forward. Midwifery has always been competency-based. Well, for the most part, the majority of it has always been competency-based. Who better than to lead that charge in nursing and in education, but a midwife? And that's what I was like, girl, can you please apply? And I'm so happy to have you here. But to have that voice at the table. And then, and Dr. Delise Robertson, when we met each other at our former institution and just like minds coming together, and for many, many years, having partnership and working together and understanding the importance of, and through her, because I was very afraid of her mental health, I was like, please don't diagnose me with something and give me meds. I told her, she knows that, she laughs at that all the time. I'm like, oh God, mental health, you're gonna say something's wrong with me. Because as a midwife, you know, when Dr. Walker says you have to be courageous, a lot of people think to be a midwife in this time, what are you, crazy? You're choosing to be oppressed? I'm already a woman, I'm a Black woman, and now I'm gonna be a midwife. And so I further choose to be, no, I choose to be brave and courageous. And that is why in having conversation with Dr. Robertson and understanding the importance of total wellness and the marriage between mental health and midwifery, You cannot really care for people, build that relationship that we have with folks and touch folks if they're not well. And we need to recognize when they're not well, how do we reach out to the folks that are experts in the field and work with them so that we have healthier children and future generations that are healthy. And so that's part of our ongoing collaboration and sisterhood. And why she says, should I be a midwife? I often think, should I be a mental health provider? No. We just need to partner more, right? And that's important. And when I met Rose, and I was so happy to be introduced to you at the McSilver Institute, and we had original conversations, even Dr. Dunamore was there, and we had original conversations, and her understanding and hearing our voice, the voices of midwives, of how we influence education and policy, and we advocate for folks and holistically from womb to tomb, as you say, right? From womb to tomb. And growing that partnership, right? And having opportunities for us to be at the table. And so through our work together, and we will continue to work together, we've been able to express and bring this to a state level. Now, I've done some congressional talks and testified before Senate and Assembly here in New York State. But Dr. Robertson and I had the opportunity to do that again, right? In February, when we talked about maternal mortality and the importance of perinatal mental health, and to raise that to the state level so that Congressman Webb, who sponsored us, could say, yes, we need to have more conversations about that. We need to bring this more to the forefront on the Senate and Assembly level and create more policies and more laws that will protect the people that we actually serve, right? So now we can't do it all, right? Because there's very few of us. And I talked about increasing the numbers for a reason, because we can't all be doing the same thing. We need to be everywhere and continue the work. And so now that we've done this for 30 years at Meyers and have had folks in education and policy and advocacy, where are we going from here? We're creating partnerships, and Dr. McLemore even stated that we're creating partnerships with some of our HBCUs, and opening those roads and those pathways, and hopefully pathways to midwifery, and reimagining education, and how do we step outside just being a brick and mortar program and reach and have our fingers throughout the United States and beyond. What's next? What do you see as being next? What's some of the thoughts on being next for Meyers and for midwifery?
I said this to Dean Imar when we first met, and as an alum, I said, we talked about what grounds you, what was the mission? And I said, leaders. We were educated to be leaders in whatever space that we were going to practice. And in midwifery, that leadership can look like different things. So I think the important thing we need to do, the foundation, is build our leaders. So if you want to move into education, practice, policy, community health, if you want to get your postgraduate certificate in mental health, right? These are all really important things, but we need to sit in the space of leaders. So I think if I think in the space of education, we want to diversify our workforce. What does that mean? We needed to diversify who our midwifery faculty were. We needed a commitment to that. And we needed to break down some structures, and we needed to rebuild that. We needed to mentor and move aside, and we needed to really promote education and access for students in a lot of different ways. So hybrid, online, on-site. And in midwifery education, about the 45 programs that are in this country, we needed to share, right, our resources as well. So I think we need to be the leaders in developing resources to share. It is an extraordinary group of people as program directors in this country. And NYU was a leader in, I think, about providing bereavement care and a simulation that was developed here that was shared with 40-something schools, right? So sharing resources, but I think we need to sit in spaces of leadership wherever we are to make that change.
Yeah. I think about my contribution and my why, and the first thing that comes to mind is, as a psych mental health provider, how can I partner with midwives in a way that closes the gaps to access to care, especially mental health care? And so what that looks like is ensuring that our programs know that in order to provide holistic care to birthing people, it looks like thinking about who they are from head to toe. So what is it that they need in terms of prioritization of wellness, screening, assessment, and intervention, and being able to feel comfortable doing that no matter where you're practicing. So if you're in a rural area, do you know how to care for a birthing person struggling with depressive symptoms? If you are in an urban area, who are your resources if you have serious mental illness concurrently with the perinatal period? So my contribution is partnering with my midwifery colleagues in ensuring that when we are teaching nurses to be midwives, that they are comfortable when they leave with managing mental health. They have the resources, the skills, and what they can't handle, who are your resources in your community, in your toolkit that you could reach out to ensure that you can manage care as best as possible? How can you co-manage, and or how can you manage it by yourself if you have to?
I will leave it to the professionals and the experts to talk about this, but I think Dr. McLemore really laid out a roadmap, and we need to disseminate more what is happening nationally, because we're so in the New York thing, thinking like what we have is so unique. How do you create without reinventing the wheel? How do you think about impact? Yeah. And in order to do that, the work with the HBCUs, I'm so excited to see that, but there's also community college and people that are interested in this, but don't know how to connect, and maybe don't know how to also integrate with NYU, right? So how do we, my favorite thing is to get off this campus and have conversations in community. How do we create learning collaboratives? You know, when you read about midwifery and all the things that midwives encounter in supporting birthing people, there's so many intersections around healthcare. For me, it was domestic violence. How do we intersect in those spaces to make sure that people are aware of what midwives are? Because there's a lot of conversations, doulas, midwives, right? No diss to anybody, but like, how do we create better understanding? How do we let people know that this is an opportunity? How do we let policymakers understand that we need to be funding this now? How do we create the imperative at this school to bring more resources and connections? And I say again, we need to start working on our policy paper and our designing models and making our ask of city and state government as they enter into the new legislative cycle and a new era of leadership here in the city.
So now I want to open it up to the audience. Any questions for our panelists? None? Wow, if we have no questions.
You cannot have this panel and not have questions in this room.
Yes.
I have a question on the policy one, because I think that's really important. You made a really good point about, in New York, we're lucky. We have a strong Department of Health. We have good leadership. We have great universities. That's not equitable across the country. So there's an opportunity to inform policy here in almost like a hub and spoke model to be able to really disseminate and help so many other people. So from a policy perspective, if there were 3 key points that you would, bring to someone that doesn't understand what the space is, what are simple ways to get the message out?
That's a great question. One, I would say, we always feel in New York that like we are leading. I think there are other jurisdictions that are doing, right? Am I right? Right? There are other jurisdictions, and that's one of the things that I've learned about. There is a legacy, as you all know, of midwifery. Like, how do we connect the dots to going back to the diaspora and having these conversations and bringing their best practices? But I think it's all through relationship building, being aware of what are other jurisdictions doing. We are so siloed in our work. We are so siloed in this university, right? We could create a brand new program just with our three institutions to speak to that very issue. Dr. McLemore's journal. There's so many different ways to find out what other jurisdictions are doing, but you need to understand that this is an important part of the education process, to understand that we can benefit from maybe Alabama's doing something that we're not doing and that we can bring to scale, right? It's about conversation, connection, talking to people that are doing the work at the grassroots level. That's the other thing I have learned very humbly, that it is those individuals and communities that have you have the organizations that people always go to answer these kinds of, it happens in DV all the time. The big organizations get all the money. And then you notice there's like an organization that's small and doing such impactful work. Those are the kinds of organizations I want to support. Those are the kinds of organization I want to shed light on and get funding for. So it's like we have to value policy as part of this work. And oftentimes people think that's a throwaway. I say this to Sasha all the time. I'm glad your paper is in the best medical journal. That's fabulous. What are you going to do to innovate practice? How are you going to make sure that it's scaled up so that it's some part of policy reform or incorporated into an aspect of government that will make holistic changes for, let's say, New Yorkers across the board. And I think that's the conversation we don't have enough in academia and in these spaces. It's kind of like, yeah, I'll go talk to my elected. But we are very lucky that we had a city council for the first time that was dominated by women of color. That made a lot of difference in the funding that was provided, the support, the power of the bully pulpit, the requests to the mayor's office, and also having people that have our shared interests. So for me, I think it's about dialogue, understanding the importance of policy, writing, sharing your ideas, creating learning collaboratives that could be, to your point, from across the country, both rural and urban.
You. I have one more question in the back.
I know Damali is not asking a question.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So I just want to say I frame this question as an advanced practice nurse and a researcher, but do want to talk about or ask a question about how do we make sure we're engaging registered nurses, right? We all come from that. We know that RNs are the largest part of the healthcare workforce, and I think it's such a big opportunity to address health inequities, but also as we talk about pathways to research, to policy, to advanced practice opportunities. So just wanting to hear any ideas or thoughts you have about how we keep nurses engaged in nursing education, engaged in wanting to stay at the bedside, not burnt out, not disenchanted with, the profession.
I love that question. And I think it's
in nursing education, if we start there, it's exposing students to a variety of what's out there. In high school, I did not know what a midwife was. I didn't know it was in undergrad. I didn't know until I had that exposure. So making sure when we're developing curriculum, yes, we have students, we're at the bedside, we want to make sure we're exposing them to the hospital. What's happening out in the community, right? There's a real movement in our education system to make sure community health is really grounded. So to have that exposure, I think is really important. And then the partnership, we get siloed in where policy to education, we get siloed on a unit to nursing to our physicians. So making sure we're building community. I know we talk a lot about interprofessional education, but I think we have to, again, flip the ask. What do people want, right? That are working on the units. What makes you stay? What would make you stay? What makes you go, want to continue your education, maybe as a researcher, maybe you want to move into policy or management. But I think breaking down those silos is really important in real time in our units. So ways that we can build that. Again, I think developing partnerships, not siloing education from our partners, right? But working together to think about educating our students and exposing them to different, the vast opportunity we have in nursing, and making sure too that we're graduating whole humans. Wherever we are educating people, that we have people that want to stay in the workforce, that aren't exhausted by the time they graduate in whatever capacity they're in school.
Hi, my name is Davia. I'm in the accelerated RN program at NYU, and an area, women's health and as well as gender affirming care are the areas I'm interested in. How do you feel like both midwifery systems as well as midwifery education could better integrate gender diverse people? We've talked a lot about women and mothers today. And I know that Dr. McLemore, you said that the people in the study you worked with said they wanted to be called mothers, but how do you feel like we can, and maybe you've seen something successful, but how do you feel like we can both in education and in practice better incorporate diverse individuals?
I think at the beginning I talked about being relentless. So I can remember some of the conversations early in midwifery education around sexual health across the lifespan. Writing curriculum for that wasn't a module, it was through the entire curriculum. So it was identifying this was important. It's part of our competencies, and there was a lot of relentless work to put that work into what we required for a midwife to graduate midwifery school, or in our women's health programs, although women's health NPs are a bit further along in those spaces. So that was a real commitment and being relentless and partnering to make sure that we put that in there, and then the correct information and updating it. And then we have to think about how in what state we're practicing and what our scope of practice is. And I got to sit on the board of midwifery many years, and we talked about scope of practice. So that's the policy and legislative part. So it's in the education system. It's us building that curriculum and making it required. And then in policy, it's making sure not in every state, you cannot practice the full scope of what you end up with in your midwifery education. And a lot of my colleagues are in different states and fight that a lot. We're really lucky here. Again, Dr. Burkhardt is a leader in that space for us here. So I think that those things are really important, but it's going to have some of that being relentless for what's important and listening to our communities, the needs of our community. And midwives are great at assessing a community and making sure good healthcare gets to them.
I don't really have a question, more of like a statement. Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm in an accelerated nursing program for sequence, and I'm dying. But I've taken quite the long path to get here. I'm a certified medical assistant. I've been doing that for about 12 years. I know the ins and outs of like just the basic, the vital signs and pretty much everything that entitles to a medical assistant. Then I went for my associates, my bachelor's, and in between that, I became a doula. And I think my passion for just caring for other humans and being a very good support system has led me to want to be a midwife. So it's like, although I'm in school for nursing, my end goal is to become a midwife. And I just feel like I love both of them so much that I have to go down this path. People be like, why don't you just jump? You're doing the most. I'm like, I like doing the most. So I'm just grateful to be here. I love your guys' input. I love everyone speaking today. And I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations on finding your why.
So on that note, I wanted to thank our panelists and speakers for engaging in conversation, and thank you all for being here. And I turn it back over to my MC.
All right. So thank you all for a really terrific discussion. Thanks for such great questions and comments. Thanks for sharing about the magic of midwifery in your personal and professional lives, and for laying out a charge to map the future. As we think about next steps, I know I'm really inspired to think about us being leaders and partners in closing gaps, in providing holistic care to birthing families, women, mothers, people who need care in the city and nationally. So thank you. Thank you again to all of our panelists and speakers. We've been blessed to have you in our presence. I also want to thank the incredible team that put together this event. So thank you to Janet Griffin and to Matthew Vanzo, Susie Zuckerman, Kathy Viscardi, and Carla Schuster, as well as our other midwifery faculty, Dr. Sharon Taylor Smalls, who came here after teaching, and Dr. Alexis Dunamore. So thank you to all of you. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone, but thank you to the huge lift this was and the event you put together. And thanks to everyone for attending the special kickoff to the 30th anniversary of the NYU Meyers Midwifery Program. At this time, our program is over, but please join me outside in the atrium for a networking reception.
We've been like circling it and circling it. That's the paper.
You gotta.
Yeah.